everyone. So welcome aboard. What a pleasure to have you again on another one of our wonderful and amazing sessions as we come together and learn in our Nani online program. And so it's been quite a journey, and I'm so wonderful experience. And so we are having, this is our last but one session, and I'm so excited about it. And the content, I think it kind of sums up all that we have been learning from the beginning on personal leadership, personal development, leadership development, in our career building, and how entrepreneurship, all those kind of skills, and how now we can link that up with when it comes to networking for success, which is the session of tonight. We're going to be learning on how best we can learn and apply this term called network. How can we network for success? And that's very important. It's very key, regardless of a lot of us have excuses when it comes to personalities networking. We say, I'm shy, or maybe I'm not outgoing, or maybe I'm not so much connected. It's not easy for me to really get along with people. But I think this is core. And I hope today we're going to learn some insights, from a wonderful facilitator of tonight. But, I hope we come and see how we can kind of customize it to our day-to-day. Like, how can we apply these lessons of today and create better connections? Because that makes the whole search for opportunities easier. It simplifies the whole search and seizing the opportunities that are out there easier when we network like best and like appropriately and maximize it. So let's open our minds and our hearts and just be open to learn. And so without further ado, I would like to invite our wonderful facilitator of the day, Miss Anita Kundi. And I believe all of you went through her bio, and, Anita will tell us more about herself as she starts. That would be nice, I think, as part of networking. Yeah, perhaps there are things that, we could have left out, but yeah, she's a great lady and she's doing amazing things. And I hope this will be a chance for us to network with her as well and get to know her better. But yeah, welcome, Anita, and it's a pleasure to have you on board. So we're handing over to you now. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction, Valencia. It's a pleasure to be here today. It's a pleasure to put some faces. I can't see Josephine, Juliet, Jennifer, Lucia, but I saw your LinkedIn profiles before the session. I went through them. So it's really nice to meet you guys, and it's really nice to share some of like my life stories. I like to go with the premise that I'm not an expert in networking. What I'm trying to do here is to share stories for us to connect so we can learn from each other. So if you have any question during the session, you feel free to ask. I'm a very open person and I like to share. Okay, so my name is Anita and I currently work as a trade advisor with the government of Canada here in Tanzania. And my job at the Canadian Embassy basically is to network. So I get measured not just by what people I meet, how many people I meet, but the quality of information I'm able to get from those people and being able to convince them to want to partner with Canadian companies. It takes a lot. Sometimes I get imposter syndrome in the sense that I feel like maybe I'm too young. I'm a woman. I don't belong in these spaces. So, it happens to each and every one of us. So it's quite humbling. But I want to start by giving you guys a little bit of a story. So when I finished my master's degree, just let me back up. So I grew up in a family. I grew up pretty well. I had a house over my head. I had food. My parents, both my mother and my father, never went to college. So I had that premise. I'm one of the first children to go to college. And growing up, there was a lot of emphasis for me to study hard. I needed to study hard, do well in exams. So I fast forward to me finishing my master's degree, going out into the market and saying, okay, now, I've done everything. I've studied hard. I've gotten the best grades. So now what? I need to get a good job, but how do I do it? I know my parents, very humble people, and they said, you know what, we don't have contacts. In Tanzania, I don't know about Kenya, but in Tanzania, there's this perception that, you need to have contacts. You need to know people. People need to know you for you to get a job, especially at the beginning. A lot of like sayings about, people, employing their relatives or their nephews and nieces. So in the beginning, I remember feeling a little bit depressed because I was thinking, okay, I'm not connected to anyone. My parents aren't connected to anyone because they never went to college. Like, this is not their circle. How do I get a job? And at that point, I had completed a bachelor's in computer science and a master's degree in management. So I was super charged up. So I came back trying to find a job, started applying online. 4 months passed and nothing. And it was quite a depressing time. And I know a lot of people, especially now, face this, being at home, speaking to your friends who are here, who have jobs, and just being at home jobless. So I said to myself, well, I'm going to stop feeling sorry for myself and I'm going to do something about it. And I remember my dad works at Kariako. So in the morning, I would ask my father, I'd say, okay, I'll dress up, I'll wear a suit. I don't have a job. I'd wear a suit in the morning. I was like, I'm done feeling sorry for myself. And I'd say, I'm coming to you. I'm coming with you to town. Just drop me at Salenda Bridge. Then I'll get a bus to city center. But I don't know what I'm doing. So that's what I did. So I would just like walk around city center, just like feeling energized. Then I started, spending time. So I would get, my dad would give me some money. So I would sit at a certain restaurant, look at people, try searching on LinkedIn. And that was the time when I got into LinkedIn. And I'll talk about the importance of being active in LinkedIn later on. But that was about the time when I got into LinkedIn. I started learning about LinkedIn, how important LinkedIn is, and the fact that you can find people, you can find their interests on LinkedIn. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, I need to do something. I need to be out there. At that point, I think it was in 2014, and oil and gas was such a huge hit in Tanzania. And I said, whoa, I want to work for oil and gas. So I remember there was a conference happening, like Tanzania Oil and Gas Congress, and it was very expensive to attend. So I remember finding information on their website, calling them, and negotiating for a student discount. They apparently had a student discount. So I got a student discount and I paid like relatively like little money compared to like what they were charging for normal. So I put on my suit. I had one suit, by the way. So I put on my suit, walk. And the night before the conference, I think a few days before the conference, I spent all my time reading about the sector. I read about oil and gas. I read about what is happening. I stalked everybody, people who work at Shell, the country managers, people who work at Statoil at that time, people who work at BG. I stalked all of them, got ready, went to the conference. And in the conference, because I had done a lot of preparation, I started asking questions. When it came to time for Q&A, I was like, well, I have nothing to lose. So I'm going to raise my hand in this 500 people conference and ask a question about a topic I don't really know, but I just want to be out there. So I hope you guys are taking notes, because I'm sort of talking about some of the things that worked well. And I remember the next day after the conference, I went to town again, wearing official, and I was sitting at Serena, and someone was sitting next to me. And by the way, guys, I didn't have any money. So I was sitting at Serena, which is a pretty expensive hotel, but I would be there, and I befriended the staff, and they would let me sit there for ages. I would just come with my laptop, my documents. I would get a newspaper. I would try to look like I'm part of this, I'm also an executive. And so I was sitting there. Then on my right-hand side, there were two people that were discussing the conference that happened the previous day. And me being me and desperate, I overheard them saying something and it was incorrect. So I talked over. I said, no, that's not the case. And they invited me to their table. This is completely random people that I don't know. They invited me to their table and they started explaining. I was like, well, I was there. I was at the conference. That's not what they said. They talked about X, Y, Z, because, I was taking my notes. And I remember the woman who was on the table there. She said, what do you do? So I said, well, I'm currently looking for a job. And she was like, well, why don't you come work for me? I'm not going to pay you, but you'll get experience. We work with oil and gas companies. We're an NGO, but, just come work for me. Come spend some time. Maybe you'll meet people. Maybe you might eventually meet someone who's going to employ you. And that's how I got my first foot in the door. I got a reason to get out of home. I started meeting people. I started feeling more confident, and it also gave me something to add to my CV, which is very, very important when you're trying, to get off the ground, when you're still off school. Have something to add to your CV. If it's not paying you, great. If you're getting lunch money or fuel money or money for transport, great. You're adding experience. And I'm sure a lot of the other facilitators have probably spoken about the importance of this. But I'm sharing this story, not because, I'm lucky but I've seen this work for so many people. I've seen people, especially if you're coming from a background where you're not connected, you're not in, instead of sitting down and feeling sorry for your situation, being more active and being more out there, even if you're shy, even if you feel like, there's nothing that I can do. I'm still fresh out of school. There is something that you can do. Like, you can be out there. I've seen so many people, in the past 8 years I've been working. I've seen so many young people who have that spirit. They're out there. They attend conferences. They attend events. They volunteer. You see all these young women, who volunteer for International Day of the Girl, for example. They're very young. Some of them are still in university in the first year, but they get to meet people, and then people get to meet them, and people get to see their energy and their zeal. So I hope some of you can relate to this story. It's one of, like, most, not embarrassing, but, like, I look back in those moments and I think, wow, I was very desperate to get a job, and I'm glad that I didn't sit at home and feel sorry for myself, but I actually got out there and met people. I have a lot of other stories about how I got another job. Like, ever since, I started working, like, all the jobs I've gotten, I've been because I know someone, and not because I know someone because I was born into it, but because I made an effort to know someone and push and actually get a job. So I'm gonna move straight to, like, the boring part, which is the presentation. But if you have a story to tell, like, you can always, jump in and tell me your own personal story about how networking has impacted your life. So I'll start.
So should I put up the presentation, Anita?
Yes, please, just put up the presentation. Thank you.
I was carried away with the story. I was actually like, okay, what's the next story that's gonna come? All right.
Right. Thanks. So just move on to the next. So today we're going to be talking about why it's important to network, networking tips, tips for maintaining relationships, and some of the next steps that we can take to move forward. And I always like to put this forward. So picture that you are, for people who are living in Dar, I don't know about Nairobi. I don't know tall buildings in Nairobi, but picture this: you're at Akemi. You're going to Akemi, or you're going to the topmost floor of the Golden Jubilee Towers, which is about 22 floors. And, you get inside the lift and you see the CEO of Tigo, or you see, Faraja Kotter, CEO of Shule Direct, or someone who you look up to who is in the sector that you're working in. What do you say to them? You've got about, like, a few minutes. What can you potentially say to them? And I think through this presentation, I think we'll get some ideas of, how, if you ever find yourself in a situation, you're in an elevator with someone who you look up to, how do you get their attention and how do you get them to remember you? So next slide, please. So this is just some of the things I was speaking about earlier, but, it's a reality that we live in, that a lot of the jobs in the career space get filled through networks. And it's something that, it's not fair, but it happens. And instead of complaining about it, we should try to do something about it. Like, we know that about 70% of positions get filled without any job ad reaching or any job advertisement. Like, it's always getting filled through people who know their networks, or your boss might ask you, do you know someone who you can recommend for this job? So this happens. This is how employers think. And this is how things work in the current context that we live in. And so this means that it's so important for us to be out there, for people to know who we are, so that, when those opportunities come up, someone can mention your name. Someone can say, oh, I know Julia, or I know Kevin, I know Baraka. I know, like, they're working for Mimi Nani, and, they're doing amazing work. Maybe you should consider them for this position. So networking is also a really great way to just really understand what is currently happening in the industry. Like I've been to a lot of functions where I've learned so much, where if I had tried to read all those things, I would have been wasting a lot of time. But by just by speaking to someone, you get to understand what is happening. You get to hear about information that might not even make the news. And you might also get career advice and introductions to people that could be potential employers. I'll just skip the next slide because it's just what I just spoke about in terms of, how companies hire for positions versus how we think companies hire for positions. And I'll move to the slide about, how to create a networking plan and how to grow your career in business network. So I went through all your LinkedIn profiles except for, I think the only person whose profile I couldn't get was, I think me. What's the name? Never mind. There was one profile that I was not able to open because it was not there. But okay, so you need to come up, you need to sort of like take a step back and think about, what sector are you in? Are you in government? Are you working in the development space? Are you working in the civil society space? And who are you trying to reach? Are you trying to get someone who is going to employ you, get someone who is going to teach you, get someone who is going to give you introductions? You need to have like an end goal in mind. And then you need to think about like, who are the type of people that you want to connect with, because that also helps you to understand what type of events or what type of organizations or what type of networking events or platforms even you might utilize to sort of like get their attention and to put your name out there so that they can get to know you. And then the other thing, which is like very important, that we often overlook, is how can I help these people? Most of the times, like, networking is a give to get game. When you go to someone, ask yourself, like, what value can I add to this person's life or to this person's business or career that they would feel equally, not obligated, but they would equally want to also help me out. And this works not just for networking, but it works for, mentee-mentor relationship, despite, what people think. But it also works in like coaching relationships. Like, you need to also think of yourself as a person that can add value. So, when you're trying to approach someone, try to think, okay, like, how can I add value to this person? Like, can I send them information about something that they're looking for? Like, you need to like go with that goal in mind, because people always appreciate someone who has helped them, and they're more likely to remember you because you become memorable in that way. And then also, when you're working on your networking plan, you should also think about, what platforms, and also what's your professional pitch, in the sense that, okay, if you meet this person, what are the two, three sentences about yourself that you can say that this person is going to remember, that is going to want to make them sort of like reach out or want to connect you with someone. Please move to the next slide, please. So I think with networking, and what happens usually is most of us are shy, and it can seem like a daunting thing to just, go to like a random event or speak to people who you don't really know. So some people suggest that, you might want to sort of like try easing your way into it by, doing with people who you're comfortable with. Today you've met me, so we can, we can talk. You can start asking me questions. Because I'm a person we've met, there is sort of like a connection. Like, I was in this session, that you were in this session as well, so we have something in common. Think about people in your church or people in your mosque. Those are people that you naturally have something in common with, but instead of just leaving it to there, why not talk to them and ask them about, their networks and what they're doing, so you can get comfortable with talking to people who are not your family. And then, if you're working, your colleagues and their friends and their families, or if you're married, then your husband's colleagues or your wife's colleagues. Like, start small so you can just get comfortable with having chit chat, and comfortable with sort of like explaining yourself and developing your professional pitch, and sort of like saying it again and again so that it becomes more natural. Then now, because of Corona and just because of the way the world is working, social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, mostly LinkedIn and Twitter compared to the other networks, have also become like very, very important. Like, and I'll speak about those mediums like at a later time. But there's different ways of creating a network. And now we live in a world where there's so many things happening. You know, you can just go on Google and see, you know, what events are happening in that. Is it free? Is it something I can afford? You go. Or do I want to invest in paying, let's say, 10,000, if that's the fee? Then you go, and then, you know, you find a way to start, you know, talking to people and getting out of your comfort zone. Next slide, please. So I think social media right now, especially with COVID, and especially just because of how people use social media, it's become a really powerful tool to network. So the reason why I asked for your LinkedIn profiles, I just wanted to see how active you guys are on LinkedIn. And I think some of you are active, some of you not so much. So, you know, there's room there for growth. But social media is so important. So to me personally, the mediums that I find very useful for professional networking are Twitter and LinkedIn. Twitter, just because it's so easy to say something or to comment or to speak about your idea in a way where you can connect with people who are not even part of your network. You know, you might see a tweet from, I don't know, who, you know, Kingangwale, for example, the Minister of Tourism, and you could respond to his tweet and say something, you know, as long as you've researched, as long as what you're saying makes sense, it's coherent, you're adding value. It has so much opportunity. Same as LinkedIn. You know, you can follow people, you can connect with people on LinkedIn, and you can connect with their networks as well. You know, if your profile is updated, it's, you know, it's, you're explaining what you do, you know, everything is there, you've got a photo. It should be pretty straightforward for you to be able to like use LinkedIn to find people. You can, you know, use the search function on LinkedIn and find people. I'm gonna like break there and talk about a personal story where I used LinkedIn in one of my networking ventures. So again, we're gonna go back to desperate, let's call her Desperate Anita. So we're gonna go back to Desperate Anita. So I remember, like, you know, once I started working with an NGO and I was looking for a more permanent job, I started researching different organizations. And I remember one of the organizations that I researched was Tanzania's credit bureau called Dun and Bradstreet. So I thought, well, you know what? I think I have the skills to work here, but I don't know anyone here, but I would like to work here and I would like to meet people from this company. So I went on LinkedIn, I went on their website. I got the name of their country manager. I went on his LinkedIn and I searched him. I saw what he was interested in. And I sort of like, I saw his picture as well, what he looked like. So I was pretty in a good place that if I met this guy, I would be able to say something. I read all about credit bureaus, you know, their value in the market, you know, how they're changing Tanzania. So then one day I said, you know what? I can't wait to meet him in an event. I'm just going to go to the office. Well, so I went to the office, you know, went all the way to town, you know, took the lift. The office was like pretty high up, took the lift, went all the way to the reception. So I'm at the reception and they said, well, I'm here to meet so-and-so. And the receptionist looks at me, you're crazy, who are you? She was like, do you have an appointment? And I was like, I don't have an appointment. And she was saying, so why are you here? I said, well, you know, I really want to work here. And luckily enough, a man walks out. He was going to a meeting. So one man just walks out of the building. And then I recognized him because I saw his photo on LinkedIn and I called him by name. I said, so-and-so, hi. And he was pretty taken back, you know, who's this random person who's calling me by name? I've never met them. So I went straight into it. I said, my name is Anita. I've researched about your work. I've researched about what your company does. I think you should speak to me. I think I can add value to your company. I think I have the skills. And he was so surprised that he said, well, I'm going to a meeting right now, but I'm going to be back at 2 p.m. So be here at 2 p.m. and I'll give you 15 minutes of your time and you can tell me what you want. I was so surprised. So I remember going to town, waiting until 2 p.m. and, you know, come 2 p.m., I went to the offices. I told him about myself. And then he said, well, I don't have a job for you, but I have people in my network that might have a job. So I am going to take your CV and I'm going to send it to someone who works in a different bank who might have a job. And lo and behold, the contact that he sent my CV to, you know, they offered me a job at their bank. So, you know, that also taught me, you know, the importance of, you know, when you have people, you know, that you know, or people who sort of like you're looking up to, you need to know what they look like. and LinkedIn is such a good profile for that. Like, you need to know what their interests are so that when you meet them, there's something that you can say to them that's going to add value. And you also need to learn about their organizations. On LinkedIn, a lot of organizations have their pages on LinkedIn. They have their employees on LinkedIn. If it's not the country manager, there's usually someone. You can go to the company page. You can check the employees that are working in that company. You can find everybody there. On LinkedIn, you can even send them messages. Like, it's such an amazing platform to connect to people that you don't know, as long as you use it well, as long as you use it in a informed, well thought out way. I mean, it's something that can do wonders for your networking goals. So, end of side story. I'm gonna move back to the slides. If we can just move to the next slide, please. So just some tips for social media that I think some of you, when I was looking at your LinkedIn profiles, I saw that you didn't have photos. Some of you, the profiles were not complete. So, for example, if you're currently working somewhere, it really helps to put in a few sentences about what you do and what skills you have, or a few sentences as well about your summary in terms of your little bio on what skills you've amassed, or what your education experience has been, or your volunteer experience as well. And this goes without saying, using good grammar and punctuation is always good. And also, I think I saw some of I was looking at the profiles, and some of them have like so many words on the like about. I think it's like CEO, founder, leader, I don't know, visionary. Like, so just stick to something that makes sense. Like, one thing, so whoever is looking at your profile is not getting confused. So those are some tips, and you guys can go online and check more tips. There's a lot of resources available on how to optimize your LinkedIn and how to optimize your Twitter profiles that would sort of like guide you into being like more professional on those sites. So I think I want to talk a little bit about the networking pitch, just because I spoke about attending events, or when you meet someone for the first time, they don't know you. What do you say? How do you add value? So some of the tips that people usually use are saying a little bit about who you are, what you can contribute, and then ending with an open-ended question for the person you're talking to, so that you give them an opportunity to say something back to you, and also you're showing interest in what they have to say. You can also find a lot of materials online about networking pitch, how to develop one. But I'll give you guys an example. I attend a lot of receptions, and sometimes you'll meet people, and I myself have been guilty of doing this, where you meet someone and you talk so much about yourself and you forget to ask about the other person, and you just talk and talk and talk to the point that the other person is completely uninterested and they want to move on and talk to someone else. I'm sure this has happened to most of us. So we need to think about, ways, how do you engage someone when you meet them? What do you tell them? What do you ask them? How do you have a conversation that flows naturally? Usually people advise that you need to ask questions, ask natural questions. When you meet someone, ask them, what are you doing here? For example, if it's, let's say, a professional event, you say, how is your company involved in this event? What's the value for your company to be in this event? Or maybe if you actually know the person or you're following them on LinkedIn, you might have seen that they posted something or something happening in the industry. Let's say it's industry news. For example, if you meet someone working at Vodacom and you saw maybe recently that Vodacom listed on the Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange. So you said, I saw the listing on Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange. Like, what are your thoughts on that? It shows that you're a more informed person. It also shows that you value other people. Like, you're a thoughtful person who wants to listen and to learn. And it gets people to talk. People like to talk about themselves. So if you're ever in an event or in a conference, in a seminar, or you meet someone, make sure you have smart questions to ask. When they ask you questions, yes, you respond, but make sure your response ends in a question for them, a smart question that they can respond and keep the conversation going. So I've given some examples on the slide, so you can just skip through them because you can always read the material later. So I'm going to talk about maintaining relationships, and this one I feel very strongly about this one. It's one thing to meet people. You meet someone, you take the business card, and it's always advised to take a business card than to give a business card. You take the business card, What do you do with it? Follow up is so important. Like, if they had mentioned something, let's say they had mentioned that they're looking for information about buses that go to Tanga. It might be the most trivial thing, but if you can find a way to help someone, they remember you. You can just follow and say, hi, it was so nice to meet you. Here's some information that I found.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer. I'm a sister.
Oh, sorry. I think somebody's has not unmute their mic.
Oh, I think she's muted now.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No problem at all. It happens.
Okay.
Yeah, so what was I talking about? I was talking about how to add value and how to maintain contacts by adding value. So it's very important to nurture your connections, to look for opportunities to help them. If you know they're looking to hire someone, if you know that they're looking for information about something in particular, or if you know that their company is struggling with XYZ, you can always follow up. You can say, oh, just information. If you see an interesting article that's useful for the industry, say, oh, by the way, I saw this article today. And also I think another thing that also works really well, especially if it's more of a mentor-mentee relationship, is sharing progress about what's happening in your life. Oh, today I attended this event. Today I volunteered at VSO. Or today I went for a beach cleanup. Have you ever done a beach cleanup? Like, it's not too out of the way, but it's also important to sort of like be updated and show the progress that you're making. And it also helps you to sort of like nurture the relationships and to show that you're a human being behind that. Also, it's really good to keep track of your contacts. Different people use different ways. Some people use just their LinkedIn. Some people keep a stack of business cards. You'll think about what really works for you. And so I don't want to spend a lot of time talking, but I want to finish the slide so we can go to a Q&A. I think next steps that I would suggest really for you guys is, first, make goals about what you want to achieve in terms of networking. And then the second thing that I think we often forget is, make yourself interesting. You need to start, if you don't read, develop a habit of reading, whether it's books, if it's newspaper, politics. Like, if you're in Tanzania, for example, and you don't know anything that's happening in politics right now, shame on you. I'm going to say it. Like, you need to be an informed person. You need to know what's happening in the sectors. Let's say you are a geologist, you graduated maybe last year, you're still looking for a job, but you don't know sector updates in terms of what's happening in the oil and gas industry in Tanzania. Or if you're working in the NGO space, do you know some of the big NGOs and the work that they're doing, that you can actually speak about it confidently. Like, it's so important to make yourself interesting because, once you're interesting, once you're well-read, you have things to talk about, and it makes it easy for you to network. And then, volunteering, I always speak about this. It's so important. It's not always about money. At the beginning of your career, you volunteer as much as possible because it gives you something to put in your CV. And also you meet a lot of people that way, and you build rapport as well. And also your Twitter and your LinkedIn and whatever social media that you're using for professional reasons, it might be an Instagram account. Just make sure they're very well updated. They have your bio, you're visible, you're posting, you're letting people know. Let's say you've taken a course, you're adding it there. Like, you're actually out there and you know what is happening and people know what you're up to. And then also attending events, so just try to do some research about events that are relevant to you and your networking goals, and make it a point, at least, every month you attend one event where you can build professional network. And then it's always very good to say thank you to people you've met, to send them follow-up emails. So I would move on to the assignment, which is to update your LinkedIn and Twitter accounts and to write down your networking pitch. So I think I've gone through all the slides and what I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to leave some time for a Q&A. So in case anyone has any questions, they can ask me. So I think, Felicia, we can move to the Q&A session, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Anita. That was a very wonderful presentation, and yeah, the sharing of the stories and getting the context in terms of what you had prepared for participants. I've been learning and updating ourselves as well when it comes to networking. So I will now, let me see how Okay, so I'm seeing there are no questions. So maybe what we can do is, okay, I will have the audience just to engage freely. I see there's some participants here. Maybe we can have a discussion around networking issues. Maybe some can share their experiences. What are their opportunities, barriers around it, and things like that. Also, maybe what they've been able to pick from, the session and so forth. So I will, I will let anyone can unmute their mic, and please feel free to ask questions or share your thoughts about the topic. Okay.
Anita, can you share your elevator pitch, please?
My elevator pitch?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay, I can share that. I have many. It depends on who I'm talking to.
Okay, so choose 3 that you would like to, for the benefit of the participants, I think, any that you think may be useful.
Okay, so, because it depends, like my elevator pitch depends on who I'm talking to. Because I meet, okay, so I'll tell you the different types of people I meet. So I meet private sector companies that are Tanzanian, and usually the goal for that is usually I'm trying to sell something. Or I meet people who are in government, or I meet people who are Canadian companies. So I might, let me just share the one usually, let's say I'm going to a reception, and I'm just gonna do it like off the top of my head. So usually, if I'm at a reception, I will probably say something like this. I'll say, "Hi, my name is Anita. I am a trade advisor at the Canadian Embassy. How did you end up here today?" And then the person would introduce themselves and they would tell me a little bit about themselves. And then I'll use that to ask them follow-up questions. If they tell me, "Hi, my name is Sanjay and I'm the CEO of Stanchart." I said, "Oh, I've seen your tweets and you're very active on Twitter. So what has Stanchart been working on with regards to whatever event we are attending?" So sort of like building that natural rapport, and also being able to introduce yourself very short, very straightforward, explaining what you do, what value you add, and getting the other person to also share. I don't know, Chris, if that helps, if that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, it does. The fact that you spoke about different situations requiring different pitches. So yeah, I think for me, I wanted to say the point that you spoke of in terms of doing the research is very important. Networking is about positioning yourself. You need to. It's like you are marketing yourself. So positioning says when you get that moment with the person that you want to interact with, what is it that is going to get their attention? So the issue of research is very important. You have to know the person that you want to target. You have to know their needs. Their needs could be genuine. Sometimes things like even ego can help you get in the door, because people respond to different things. So it's not always going to be the most professional thing that is going to get you into the door. If you know that somebody loves a certain football team, it's your business to know that information. If you know that they respond well to people that are well dressed, then you need to make sure that when you go, you dress properly, and then they're going to notice you. So yeah, I thought that was a very important point that you mentioned, and yeah, so that's by way of addition.
Okay, thank you so much, Chris. And just there's a question that popped up here. So maybe I will give Ashley a chance to ask a question, and maybe, yeah, we can have a discussion around it. Ashley, please just unmute. If you can just unmute yourself. I hope your connection is good. I think it would be nice to hear you. Ashley, are you live? Oh, okay. Oh, you can okay. Interesting. Is it the settings? Okay, okay. All right. So, okay, Ashley is not able to unmute, but her question is, how do you go about career gap on updating a linked profile?
Does that mean sort of like if maybe you finished school and you were not working for a certain period of time, let's say a few months or a year?
I don't know. That's why I wanted her to kind of, oh, she says yes. So
Oh,
actually
okay.
the student is a university student. So perhaps, that in relation to that.
Right, I see. I think people usually try to shy away from like saying the truth about a career gap, but there's nothing wrong with having a career gap on your CV or on your LinkedIn. So, for example, if you've just finished school and you're still searching for a job, there's still things that you're doing that you can speak about. You know, are you volunteering or are you working for a family-owned business? It might be the smallest thing, but maybe you're helping your father or your sister design something for their business. Like you need to think about it more creatively. Like one, either you just leave it out, or two, you think creatively about the things that you're currently doing. There must be something you're doing. Maybe you're part of a church, and in your church you're volunteering, let's say for the children's church, or you're volunteering for something. There must be something that you're doing during that time. Like a career gap doesn't necessarily mean that it's just empty. Like you could be at home, but you might be at home, but you're learning how to bake, or you're baking cakes, or you're helping your mother, social media, I don't know, do her social media for her business, for example. There has to be something like, if you have, like it cannot be completely empty, like unless it's completely empty and there was nothing that you're doing at all together, then you can leave it empty and nobody should fault you for that. But if there, like you need to think more creatively about what you're doing with your time and how you can put that on your CV and on your LinkedIn profile. Like you can just tell me, Ashley, like you can just tell me right now, like what are you doing? Like why do you say you have a career gap? Maybe let's help you now.
That's very nice. I think, I don't know, Ashley, is it your network or it's our settings maybe that you're not able to unmute?
Or she could be in a position where she can't speak.
Oh, okay.
Maybe you can just type it.
Yeah, maybe she could try typing. Okay, yeah, Chris is right.
Okay.
She's in a place where she can't speak. Okay, so maybe she can air out her concerns on a chat as we move on, and then we will come and address it. But Ashley, please feel free to use the chat and just speak out as much as you can. She took a gap year from uni.
You
Yeah.
volunteered. That's amazing. You need to talk about that experience. Who did you volunteer with? Which organization? Is it multiple organizations? What were you doing? Which part? Was it humanitarian? Was it, education, health? There has to be something that you can say. I'm actually very proud that you volunteered and you took a gap year from uni. That's very good, Ashley. I'm proud of you.
Great. Okay. So I think Ashley has a lot to talk about actually. With that, the experience in that volunteering year. So maybe she could get help from you. Do you think, Anita, would you be able to look further into maybe her profile and see?
Yes, I would do it. Yeah. So actually, we can we can take this conversation. I can help you to sort of like write out your experience, like your volunteer experience. We can have a conversation, and then I'll be like, you can write this, you can write that, you can write this. There's so much you can say. So much.
That's right. Thank you, Anita. Okay, so let's move on to any question, anyone around networking, please. So please, let's feel free to use the chat or ask. I'm seeing there is Lucia. Lucia, would you like to ask Mildred? Just calling out names randomly. Yeah, hoping that we.
Mildred, I didn't see your profile. I remember it was Mildred. I didn't see your profile. When I clicked on the link, it said the link wasn't valid.
Oh, really? Okay, Mildred, are you able to speak? I wonder if you're able to speak.
Sorry for calling you out.
Okay, it's fine. It's a small class and we've been here for long enough, so I think that should be all right. Okay, so I thought maybe.
I think maybe Anita can share some of the tools that she uses to do some of these things that she was talking about. For example, when you're researching on on people, how do you do it? do you have a structured approach in terms of doing that? How do you save your contacts? I think much of what the participants are probably looking for is those specific tools that somebody else has used and they could also leverage on them. I don't know whether you're able to share with the participants.
Yeah, happy to. I'm actually trying to look for, I have like little business card holders, but I think I left them in the office today. I didn't bring them. But I have, so in terms of how do I find contacts and how do I keep, and what tools do I use? I find contacts, like mostly my number one way of finding or meeting new people is by attending events. I attend each and every event. If I hear there's an oil and gas event, if I hear there's an event, it might be even in the sector that I don't work in, I will make time for it. If it's in the evening, I will make time for it. I will go, and I will get back home from work. I will dress up and I will go. I'll have my business cards ready. So, you need to have business cards when you go to events so you can give people, but equally important, like you need to take business cards. You need to have a way of storing them in a structured way. So I have little booklets where I structure the business cards that I collect. So I have one for like government, I have one for private sector, I have one for embassies, I have one for development space. So it's all like, nicely like labeled, this is government, and I'll go through it and I'll just like, when I meet someone, I'm like, yay. So I put in my business card. So I collect a lot of them. Then another way is LinkedIn. Like LinkedIn is very important to me. I've met so many people through LinkedIn. So usually if I'm looking for information about maybe an organization or someone, I would just go on LinkedIn and I would search for that company. I would look for the employees in that company because it's fairly easy that way. So let's say if it's Tigo, so you go to Tigo on LinkedIn, then you can see the people who work at Tigo from their page. So then it's very easy for you, especially if you don't know the name of the person that you should be searching for, then you can find it there. But I use LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn quite a lot, like quite a lot. I don't think a day passes without me using LinkedIn. And I've made sure to update my profile on LinkedIn. And I do that by, like looking at, my own profile and my own work and assessing, what I've done and what I can speak about. But also equally important is I look at profiles of people who I look up to. So, I'll stalk Valencia Masaki and look at her profile and say, okay, this is how she speaks about volunteer experience. Interesting. Maybe I should think about that. Not copy pasting. I'm just getting inspired. I look at people who are, leading in the industry. I look at their profiles. And read their articles. I would comment in an article that I find, interesting, or I have something to say about the article. To be honest, I've not been very good at using Twitter. Most of the times I use Twitter to just, see what people are talking about, get news on politics because, it's always good to be informed. But I haven't reached a level. I'm still working on it. I'm still a student myself. I'm still working on, developing confidence to build a personal brand on Twitter as well as I've built it on LinkedIn for me. And I think another, sort of like technique that works is, once you've connected with someone on LinkedIn, you look at their network because now they're your second connections. So if you know someone there, you can add them. And people these days are very open. It's not like in the past where people were very much protective of their LinkedIns and they didn't want to connect with someone they don't know. Most people nowadays are very open-minded and they would accept a request from a random person. I've found that works. So I think just, having a mechanism of storing your business cards, everybody has their own way. Some people prefer, going on Excel and inputting all the names and their contact in a way where like they can actually track it. I'm still very old fashioned. I still have my little business card books. But LinkedIn is also very important. I've not really made use of WhatsApp yet. Maybe someone can like teach me how can I use WhatsApp in groups on WhatsApp to sort of like build my network. I think, yeah, that's it. Did I answer your question, Chris?
Yes, it's sharing. So you've shared the tools. I think on the business cards, I would encourage the participants to also look at the electronic forms which are free, such as Camcard. That's what I personally use. It takes pictures. It's the same thing as Anita's, only that it's soft copies. So the beauty for me with that is wherever I am, I can then look at the business cards. If I'm stuck somewhere, I'm waiting for a meeting to start, I can go through those. I'm flipping through my phone. And you can also download them into Excel, analyze them, and do all sort of things. So yeah, that's one tool that I would share with the participants. CamCAD, it's
Yeah.
free, it doesn't cost you anything.
Okay, just to make sure if I'm typing that correctly, just see, and if it's not, please, if you can help us put it on the chat, Chris, on the app.
I think that's it, Felicia. That should be the right spelling.
All right.
Yeah, it's got a blue icon, CC. Yeah, it is. That's the correct one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chris, for bringing that up. And yeah, I think participants are more enlightened on that. And then now there's a question, Lucia. Lucia, would you like to unmute your mic as well, if you won't mind, and if you're able to? It would be nice to ask, and maybe in a way that gets you to elaborate your question better. I think it's to be great. Lucia, are you able to? I know you've posted a question, but I think, yeah, it will be great to hear you. Just let us know if you're able to speak. Okay. Lucia, are you there? No? All right. So I think she's not. Oh, in a moment. Okay, you will. All right, okay. So, and then Jennifer, are you there? Jennifer, would you like to speak as well while we're waiting for Lucia? Jennifer Gumba, I see you're ready to speak. Jennifer? Okay. All right, so, okay, Jennifer had a question as well as we're waiting for Lucia, and her mic is on, but I don't hear her. So maybe we can just ask on her behalf. Her question was, is it possible that Ms. Anita gives personal feedback on our LinkedIn profiles? Okay, so is this, do you mean like one-on-one feedback, or because I think she kind of went through that in a like general, right, Anita?
Yeah, I provided general feedback, so just scanned through most of the profiles. And I would not give one-on-one feedback just because I want you guys to do some work. Like, I want you guys to sort of like, evaluate where you are. Like, if you're working in an NGO space, evaluate, okay, I'm working in the NGO space. Do some research because you'll also get inspired. Do some research about people that you look up to that are working in the NGO space. Go on LinkedIn. You can just literally on LinkedIn, you can go to the search criteria. You can type, let's say if it's Care International, just type organization, Care International. Look at the people, look at their profiles, how are their profiles written? Because it also gives you inspiration to see like, what are some of the gaps that you have and areas that you can improve. Okay, I think I could do it, but I also think that it won't be a learning process because I want you guys to actually like sort of on the process, that you need to update your LinkedIn profile. Like, you need to know what is out there. You need to know what the gaps are. And if you've done that process and you still feel that, you're struggling to update your LinkedIn, then you can write to me and you can say, okay, I've done X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, but I still think my LinkedIn profile is not enough. Like, what can I do? Then I will respond. But I want you guys to do the research first.
Okay, that's very good. I think, in other words, it's like go and apply the sessions, lessons, and then you come back, and now I think that would be the best and ideal process. So yeah, I wouldn't agree more on that. So Jennifer, I hope that clarifies. So I don't know if you were here from the beginning of the session, but yeah, that's basically what she did. She was going through the profiles more in a general way and giving overview, and as she was addressing some of the issues over the session, like throughout. So if you have been following through the components of the sessions, they should somehow give you feedback of how you might need to make some improvements. And if you feel like you have done that already, then that would be great to get in touch with her. Like, just reach us, or yeah, if there's no, you can connect, by the way, with her through LinkedIn. And maybe start a conversation right there, and or we can as well assist you to link
Yeah,
you with
actually everybody today, if you go to, like, who's viewed your profile, you'll see that I viewed your profile, because I don't hide when I view people's profile. Like, I'll be like, Anita Kundi viewed your profile. So you can find me on LinkedIn that way. I made it easier.
All right, excellent. Okay, so that's I think that's well addressed. So back to Lucia. Lucia, are you there? Are you able to speak now?
Yes. I don't know if you
Okay,
can hear
great.
me.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So my question will be: suppose maybe you're from work, and then a friend of yours get to invite you to some event that you haven't even researched about it, or you know nothing about it, just a little bit. So how do you get to blend in that situation? Suppose you are in the maybe marketing field, and then I don't know, not necessarily marketing, because it blends in with everything. Maybe sports, and then you attend something to do with engineering or something. So I don't know, how would you blend in a such setup? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if my question is
Yeah,
clear.
makes sense. I have two words: ask questions. Like, just ask questions. Like, once you've introduced yourself, ask questions, because it's an opportunity for you to learn. And then when you ask questions, human beings being human beings who like to talk about themselves and their work, you're giving them an opportunity to speak. Once you've, this is the thing I like about receptions, right? You're here, you're speaking to someone, you ask them questions, they already feed you information. You might ask them, oh, so, about engineering, do you guys have to register? Or, how's the sector? Like, I've seen that, construction is so expensive these days, so how do you guys work with that? They'll respond to you, they'll tell you something, you'll stick with that thing. When you speak to someone else, you already have at least a tiny little bit of information that you gain from that one person you had the initial conversation with. So receptions, like always, information is moving around like that. But ask questions. You don't have to know everything, but when you ask questions, you're learning, and then you're giving other people an opportunity to talk, and they're going to remember you as a good listener. Someone who was listening attentively to what they were saying and was asking questions based on what they were speaking about. There's always something to learn.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anita. I think that's very, I don't know, Lucia, if you're quite satisfied with that. But I think
I would
going back
add
to
on
the
Alicia,
sorry.
I would like to add something to that
Okay,
question.
okay.
Yeah, I think in terms of asking questions, absolutely right. Personally, I would actually confess that I know absolutely nothing about this, and then you should be in a position to ask even questions that some people may feel they are stupid, even though they are not stupid questions. So for me, my icebreaker would be, you know what, I'm totally clueless about what you guys do. And with that, it then allows you to ask a lot of questions and, not feel out of place. And from there, as Anita has said, you get an opportunity to learn about that industry. But it has to be genuine interest. It shouldn't be asking questions just to pass the time, because someone will notice that you are simply looking to pass the time, and they may get offended.
It's very true. Like, very, very true. Like, people actually, I think we always, always think that, people like would do the worst. Like, people are actually good people. Like, they're actually nice human beings. They actually have good hearts, and they want to help people. So I think when you're networking, you have to remember that, when you go to someone and you genuinely say, I actually don't know anything about this, they would be more than happy to explain to you. Like, most people will be, unless someone, I don't know, has issues and they're having a bad day, but 99% of the people would be very nice and warm towards something like that.
Okay. So a quick question also, just in addition to what I think Lucia was saying, asking, how about, I don't know if it's the people's attitude, or when you get to an event, and like, what gets you to to have that courage, let's say, to reach out, because not everyone, like, people would rather be in their comfort zone and, you know, not make an effort, especially when it's events, it's these networking events, and where, like, you know, people can have a choice whether they just sit down and, or just being on a corner and just have their glass of cocktail, and not just, you know, going and reaching out. So because of many reasons, and, you know, that could be one, would rather be in a comfort zone, or maybe they don't feel like they have the courage to reach out, the boldness, and, you know, and stuff like that. So even after this session, you know, they have gotten everything, the knowledge and all. Now, what really, you know, do you experience that kind of fear, or maybe, you know, some adrenaline rush? Like, how do you overcome that? How do you get over it, if it exists, if at all it's there? Or what would you say to people like that, who would rather be on their comfort zone and not having over to think of all that effort and process of getting through that just to network, you know?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's something I personally, no matter how I might come off here, and no matter how many receptions, I've attended so many receptions, so many events in the past 8 years. But up until this day, sometimes I'll go to an event and I'll think, oh my God, I don't know anyone, you know, or I see people talking and I start calculating in my head, how do I join them? There's a group of 3 people. What do I do? You know, how do I join them without being weird, like I'm, you know, breaking their, like, you know, conversation? So there's two ways you can go about it. The first way is, I usually try to find someone who is alone. In an event like this, you know, there is probably someone who is just as shy as I am, who is standing alone. Or if it's just 2 people, it's actually much, much easier. So if it's a person standing alone, you can walk up to them and say, hi, you know, can I join you? Then you start speaking to them. And most of the times, if they're standing alone, they would be so glad that you joined them, because they're equally feeling as anxious. So try to, like, you know, scan through the room. Do you see someone who is alone that you can join? That is one. Second thing, if you know someone, it helps. If you know someone who is there, it helps. But if you don't know someone, you know, something that I've used that works for me usually, just because I'm a woman, I would go, if I see men, I would go and I'll just say, hi, I want to sort of like do something about the gender distribution here. So you guys going to let me into your little group? And most of the times they would laugh and say, oh, you know, okay, join us. It takes a lot of courage. I know sometimes I feel awkward. Sometimes it doesn't work. Some people can be very, like, in their own little bubble, and you can see from their body language that they're not happy that you have joined them. It's okay. It happens. You know, take your, you know, find a way to say, oh, it's been nice meeting you, and just, you know, move on to another group. You know, so I think we should just always remember that people are human. So even when we're feeling scared, just know that, you know, those people who look like, you know, they're, you know, having the best time, or they know everybody, they've also been anxious at some point in their life, and they relate to you being anxious. So I think, you know, find someone who's alone, find 2 people, you know, find a group of, like, different gender, you know, it always helps. Another thing that I've found that really helps, and this is something I learned from one of my friends. She's a very, like, find someone who is talkative. So she's very talkative, like, she's very energetic. You know, she goes to people, she's like, hey, so and so, have you met Anita? Have you met, like, she'll be the person who's sort of like taking you around through the night, as long as it's someone you know, and you're not being sort of like a bug that you're stuck to one person and you don't want to let them go. But if it's someone you know and you can be open to them and say, hi, you know, I'm very shy, you know, can I sort of like be with you? And if they're open to it, why not? You know, stick around with them. If they're the person that would introduce, you know, have you met so and so? Or you can even try the trick yourself. I mean, sometimes you might find you're in a reception and it's just the 2 of you talking for a long time. You know, you can try and look for another group and say, oh, let me introduce you. Like, if you know the other one of the people in that group, is, let me introduce you to so and so. So, you know, you're bringing the person to another group, you're making the group bigger, and it's also an opportunity for you to start networking with other people who are in that group. So, it comes by doing at the end of the day, being comfortable in group situations, being comfortable in events and seminars with people who you don't know comes by doing. You have to put yourself out there to get eventually comfortable with it. I think that's what I can say. But also just remember that people are human. I always have to pinch myself a lot. I get imposter syndrome a lot. And, sometimes I'll go somewhere and I'd feel like I don't belong here. What am I doing here? Like nobody here looks like me, or they're gonna think that, what is she doing here? But I have to pinch myself in those moments and remind myself, everyone here is human. Everyone here poops. It works for me. It calms me when I think that. That, so I should not be afraid. Like, they've all been in my position at some point in their lives. So they will be sympathetic to the point that I might feel out of place, or I might feel like, I don't really know people. And most people are sympathetic. So I think that's what I can say about it.
Thank you so much, Anita. I think that's well said. Okay, if there's anybody who would like to add to that, please feel free to chip in as well. This is getting interesting. So we have another question. Yeah. Josephine, would you like to speak, or I just ask on your behalf, please? I think it would be nice as well to hear from you if you're able to unmute your mic. Okay, Josephine.
Thank you. I just wanted to know Anita's experience in payment for, I think there are sometimes some like prompt message coming in, like if you want to get more network or easily getting a job, you can pay for, like subscribe in LinkedIn to get more network, see who is viewing your profile. I wanted to know if any of us have ever experienced it and if it really works.
Okay, thank you, Josephine. That is with regards to LinkedIn.
Yeah, I've gotten those messages a lot, but I've never tried LinkedIn Premium just because I think you can do a lot with the non-premium version. So I've never tried it, so I can't speak to like what the benefits are like to using the paid version of LinkedIn.
Okay. So I think I also don't have much, but I've heard people like who are handling recruitment or like who are looking for people to to work in their organizations or looking for trainings, especially when it comes to these opportunities for learning. I think it's been also very useful for them, those who subscribe to the LinkedIn services. But I also don't know so much, like to what extent. But for those who do, I think speak very well of it. I don't know, Kevin's, what would be your experience around that? I think you apart from Anita, you've also been speaking so much about LinkedIn and its usefulness. I don't know on that part of payments, whether you have any exposure to that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the call out. You see, the LinkedIn Premium will in a way also work best for businesses, in the sense that it gives you an expansive network. It gives you, let me just say, it gives you an expansive globalized network. But then again, how can I just explain this? One of the things that happens with the LinkedIn Premium is in the sense that it gives you something called email. Email is the ability for you to inbox and share a message with Anita without Anita's consent. In that, if you're a regular user of LinkedIn, you'll realize that there's some people, yes, whom you'll want to package personalized information to, basically probably selling your services or something, which it will not be possible for you to do what, to inbox them if you are on the ordinary LinkedIn platform. But 10 emails to do across those persons whom you can't reach on your regular LinkedIn profile. That's basically what I can say. Though for me, I will be sincere in the sense that I always don't want to pay the $150 for LinkedIn Premium. So in a way, at times I'll be smart in the sense that LinkedIn at times gives you an option to subscribe freely for a month, with the option of paying, subscribe to it on a month and not renew it up on the next. And within this particular month, I will maximize in marketing, I'll maximize in sharing profile. And sincerely, yeah, I know I've benefited quite a while with returns from LinkedIn. So it's just about also at times trying to be smart. That's all I can say with the with the whole LinkedIn profile. I know Jennifer Gumba must be listening and saying, Kevin, what are you saying? But then again, me, I'm just sharing with you guys across survival tactics and survival skills in terms of how you need to navigate yourself through through the social media platforms. Thank you. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Kevin. The free trial gang. Eh?
I am one of them.
Thank you for sharing that.
Very impressive.
So you had the premium experience on trial, right?
Yeah.
I've
I've had a premium experience on trial, and I think like about 6 times I've done trial premium.
Wow.
And in a way,
really?
yeah, in a way to work. Man, I mean, evaluation, these things, you need to be aggressive and extra aggressive. Not really enough for I to call Chris Gumbe each and every day and say, Chris, my name is Kevin, I wish to share my profile across. So I always call them guerrilla tactics. I can't meet you, but I really want to share and testify some of my services. I'll have to find a different tactic to do what? To tap into that particular network and just do what I can. So that's all I can say.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. All right, this is getting interesting, and we have okay, about 9 minutes. Josephine, I hope the question is somehow addressed.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
seems like
Thank you.
seems like it maximizes from Kevin's sharing. Definitely, he went back again like 6 times, right? So
I think I will take that idea.
sorry.
I think I'll be like Kelvin. I'll try.
Oh. Okay. So,
Allow me to share something in response to Jocelyn. Just ensure also that when you're testing your LinkedIn Premium, just ensure that you've done your profile right. In that, just ensure your introduction is precise. Try and upload photos of past events and activities that you've been able to do in terms of work, because now that gives your profile a good visual appeal, so that at least when you go really premium, it means that the footprints that you'll be reaching out to will kind of find something interesting to view on your page. In that, if you go premium and you really don't have content to read, or other content or other pictures that someone will tend to attempt to really see what exactly was he or she doing, then it means that yes, you'll be premium, but your platform is not juicy enough for someone to read. So as Anita has just alluded, one of the ways of trying to rebeef your LinkedIn profile is also seeing what other persons whom you're interested in associating with on how they write their profile. Then based on that, you can customize and play around with the wordings and put it on your link, so that actually when you go premium, you're going premium with substance, not that you've gone premium, no substance. Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a very good advice. Thank you. I'll take note of all that Anita already shared as well.
thank you, Josephine. Thank you, Kevin, for that. I think that was a very very useful insights that you added to that. That we know that strategic move, it has to be real all the way. Okay, so all right, we have 6 minutes to go, and okay, I wonder if there is any question, comment before we wind up from our participants, and you know, around today's maybe okay, let me be quiet and let people speak, because I wanted to add something, a question. 30 seconds of silence and waiting for anyone to chip in. Okay, I'm not sure if it's 30, but all right. So whoever wants to speak, just chip in. I just wanted to ask Anita, like, should you have a goal for, in terms of, okay, I know maybe for you, because you mentioned something like one of your metrics, performance metrics is that you, okay, it's about how many, I think, people you meet, right? And sort of connect them to your business or your trade. So, when you go to an event to network, I think it's a lot of effort and investment as well, time and all that. You're going to specifically increase your connections, or turn networks into business meaningful connections and things like that. So do you have a goal that, my minimum is like I have to be 3 strategic, I don't know, connections, or if I just have one connection, I don't know, do you have like a number, or like, do you have any measurement at all, or something like that? Do you have that, all made up in mind when you go to these events and things like that? And so maybe you kind of want to maximize, like, now, I have only met one person throughout the night, I should try to maybe sort of catch up or something like that, and meet as many people as possible. Like, what is a, what could be, is it in terms of numbers, in terms of, do you have any of those in mind? And whether do you, are you able to measure them? And when you leave, how do you feel, like, satisfied? Is it on the number of people that you've met, the quality of the conversations, or is it about how those conversations have turned into possible business or something? Just my question around that, because things, some of us might be struggling there. And
Thanks. That's a very good question. And it goes back to your objectives. Like, it goes back to your networking objectives. Like, what is the objective for you? If you're someone who just wants to increase the number of who you know in a specific industry, then, the more people you meet, because, I have this thing where when I go to an event, I will speak to anyone, because I know that, like, you never know what you're going to learn. If my goal for that event is to meet as many people as possible, I'll try to speak to as many people as possible, because you never know who is going to add value where. That's one. But most of the times, for work reasons, when I attend events, it's usually because I'm trying to meet someone specifically. Sometimes it's someone from the government who I have not been able to have access to otherwise, or sometimes it's someone from a particular company, a particular organization that I really, really, like, I'll give myself a goal that I'm not going to leave this event until I've met and spoken to so-and-so. So sometimes I usually have a target. So if I'm going to an event and I can see, most of the times in events, they'll share with you the speakers list. If there's someone from that speakers list that I really want to talk to, I'm not going to leave until I talk to them. That would be sort of like my main target for attending this event, is to speak to so-and-so, because I know I have no other platform to reach them, and this event is going to give me that avenue to actually, like, reach them and talk to them. So it's usually very driven by what I'm trying to achieve. When I'm going to a more relaxed event, it's really about, getting to know people. It doesn't really matter how many cards. It's just, learning. As I think it was Juliana who asked, sometimes it's just learning. I'll go to an event and I just want to sit down and learn about what they're talking about. Why is this topic interesting to other people? And I'll be very relaxed about it. And I've been to events where I would tell people, like, very honestly, that I'm so happy to meet you, but I have a target. I need to meet this number of people, and I need to keep going. And I'm usually very, very honest, and I'll tell people, I'm trying to meet so and so. Excuse me, I'll go and speak to so and so. It was very nice to meet you. I'll sort of like summarize what we spoke about and areas where we can collaborate. So it really depends on your goals, and that's why it's so important. Before going on your networking plan, is to have goals in terms of your networking. What are you trying to build? And I think we also, like one challenge that I'm going to put out, because it's also an area that I've been, reading about a lot, is about personal branding. Personal branding online, personal branding when you meet people. So, networking is also an avenue for you to do personal branding. It's such a huge thing in the current world that we live in. Your brand, goes forth before you. So, networking is a way for you to use your personal brand. So I don't know if it's a topic that was covered in a previous session, but I'll be very interested to learn more personally, and I hope other people also pick up this interest on how you can use your social media, how you can use networking to do personal branding, because I think it's very, very important. So I'm putting it back, as something to think about if you guys haven't thought about it.
We have covered that in the previous sessions. I think we had a double round on that. So that's covered
amazing.
pretty well, yeah. And I believe, yeah, participants have really learned so much from that, and now connecting with this must be a very great, wrapping up.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Anita, for sharing your thoughts, experiences, and your wisdom with us around the topic of today, and addressing all these questions, and having us on the discussion. It was really, I enjoyed the session and everything. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure, and I would like to thank our participants for making time to attend. And we have been having our facilitators who also joined us tonight, and yeah, that was really great. So thank you for your contributions of following up silently behind the scenes, and so thank you so much. So with that, I would like to wind up the session, and let's get to the assignment. Let's try to reflect further on these lessons and work on them and see how this will take us forward. Otherwise, it was a great time. Thank you so much, Anita. And thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night, and I wish you the best rest of the week. Yeah, good night and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.